Hello, Dave here. Welcome to Learn JavaScript with me. Going through the book exercises, and the book I'm working through, or we're working through together, hopefully, is Modern JavaScript Develop and Design. It was written by Larry Ullman. I have no relationship with him except for I purchased his book off of Amazon. And if you want more information about this book, please go to larryullman.com. And there's our opening book information. Been working through these exercises, and as you can see here, I've created, I'm calling it my JavaScript showcase. Have a bunch of exercises out here. This is how many done so far up through chapter 8. And today we're looking at chapter 8, event handling 3, the key up. And in event handling 1, we created a utility lib, and that utility object U has 4 methods. A method to reference HTML elements named $, a method called setText that puts text into HTML elements, the add event, and that's the key one for chapter 8, and it allows us to add an event listener, and finally one called remove event, and that's to remove event listeners. So those are the 4 in our library, and we'll take a brief look at the actual code behind that. And just to show you here, in order to, if you want to play at home, you can go to davecoast.com and go to Learning JavaScript on the nav bar. And the same poster in here. Here's my global post on Learning JavaScript. And out here is js.davecoast.com, where the exercises exist for your debugging pleasure. So doing my work, and I'll be debugging this one on my local host, and that's why I have a XAMPP local server here. That's what I'm using for my testing and debugging and coding. So let's go ahead, go to chapter 8 exercises, and I'll go to event handling 3 key up, and you'll notice, or if you went through from the beginning in chapter 4, we did this limit text, and I called it text slicer, and you could basically enter some text in here, and it would limit that text to 100 characters. And this was all well and good, and it introduced two methods on strings, right? Way back in chapter 4, just learning what variables are, and we learned the length and the slice methods, those 2 methods. Well, now we're upgrading this exercise, and let me zip back here to this key up, and we're changing it so that we're actually listening to event before we do that slice, and also determine the length. So if I enter text in here, right, if I enter ABC, notice that the counter dynamically updated, right? And I didn't need, previously I had to click the button to make that happen. And that's because once I brought this page up, I have an event listener. We'll see how that works. So if I keep on typing here, just a bunch of characters, you see how the number just keeps going up. And that is every time the key goes up, it resets that count. And I'm just trying to get to where I'm over 100 here, and you'll see that I can't enter anymore. 98, 99, 100. See, so now if I keep on entering, see that? It doesn't allow that code to happen. See, it keeps on slicing it back to 100. So, all well and good, and I can just re-clear that with the button. Very nice. Let's go ahead and take a look at the code, see what's happening behind the scenes. And this is our wonderful, fun JavaScript exercise of the moment. So here's the actual JS code. You'll see it's very limited, not that many lines of code. Here's the HTML, and basically, I mean, you could see right out there, we got a text area, an input text field, right? And that's where we're putting the actual count information, the number of characters. And we also have the button, and that's the basic form. And we also are including our two JavaScript files, our utilities library first, and our text counter.js second. So let's just take a quick look at our text counter. And you'll see here that we're using the value length method, right? Because we've associated this text in work, and we've used our utility library $ method to link to the HTML element. But let's go ahead and start at the bottom, because that's how the JavaScript works. So first of all, we do this window.onload, and we execute a anonymous function, anonymous because it does not have a name. And we do the u.addEvent. And again, we'll take a look at this in a moment, but again, the capital U, that's from our utility library. So the u.addEvent, so we're adding an event listener, which has three arguments. The first argument, it is referencing the text in ID, so that is from our text counter HTML. And if we look back to our form here, here's the text in ID, and that's our text area. So we're listening on that element. We're listening for a key up, not the key down. So whenever the key comes back up, we are going to execute the function limit sum text. And in case we go in with the mouse and like right click and paste text in there, we're also looking for a change. So if I paste text in there, once I lose focus from that text area, or obviously leave that text area element, then the change event, which I'm listening for also on the same elements, will execute the same function. And that function up here is written up here. The function is called limit sum text. So the first thing we do is we get the data, right? So we're setting a reference, and I call it text in work, to the text in ID. So I'm setting a reference to the HTML element, then creating a separate variable called count work. And this count is the text in work, right? That's this field here, its value, and the length of that value. So here's the length method on the value that it has in this HTML element, and so I have a count there. So then I do a reference to the count ID element, right? If I go back out here, here's count ID, and that's the, right, let's take a look out here. There's the count element, and there's that text element. And bring the code back up here. So that element, I'm going to put into that value the count work, right? So we got the length. So I'm going to put that length out to the HTML page. If that length is greater than 100, then I'm going to change this value starting at position 0, which is the very first position, for a length of 100. So I'm going to slice that variable down. Then I'm also going to change the value to 100 because, right, count work was greater than 100 here. So it had to be like 101. So instead of having a value equal to 101, I want that value to equal again the actual number of characters that are out in the field. And that's it. And then we return. So let's take a quick buzz through this in debugger. And just for the fun of it here, here's the utilities. And I guess I'm not going to bother going through this each and every time. There is a video on this, or just debug it and look through it. It only has 4 methods in it, right? So it creates the object U, and in that object U, it has 4 methods: the $ method, the set text method, the add event method, and the remove event method, right? These 2 methods are pretty much the same. You know, one's turning it on, one's turning it off, but basically the same 3 arguments. The set text uses the $ element. Notice that it uses this $. It has to use the this keyword to reference this other property within the same object. And so there's our utilities code. Got utilities code. If you have questions on that, please just let me know, and I can go into deeper detail. But I think it'll be pretty clear. We'll buzz through it very quickly in debugger and see what happens. So let's go ahead and move this guy out of the way. And we have our code here. But let's go ahead and turn on Firebug. And here's our Firebug console. I am going to go ahead and detach that, move it up here just a little bit, right? And here's our console. And just for the fun of it, we can look at those, you know, the length and the text, right? So if I create a variable test text equal, this is some text, right? And I click run, then I have test text out there, right? And if I just look at test text, it shows me what that text is. Then I can do test text dot length, right? And if I highlight it, it's only going to execute what's highlighted, or else it'll execute everything. So I click run, and it's got a length of 17. And I highly recommend playing around with these methods in the console. Best way, for me anyway, to learn how to do it. And if I do variable test text2 equal test text dot slice, and I'll start with 0, 10, right? And the slice thing, 0, this is position 0, right? And it's basically position 1, just something to get used to. So there's that slice, and these are just simple methods, standard string methods. If I run that, right, now I can look at just plain, test text2 here. And if I run that, you see that this is SO, right? And I can do test text2 dot length, and run that, and you see that that has a length of 10. So anyway, so that's the work that's happening up there. Let's go ahead and debug this guy. I'm just going to clear that out. Let's clear this guy out. Let's switch to script. We click reload. I'm going to click resend there. Bring my screen back up here. Let's go ahead. Notice out here, right, there's my local host. This is where my JS files are, but Chapter 8 text counter and Chapter 8 utilities. Those are the 2 we loaded from the HTML. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up the text counter, go within my limit some text function to the first executable statement, click out here, set a breakpoint. Now that I have a breakpoint set, I can come back out here and start entering some text. So I click into there, and notice what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit a D. Oh, look at that. I put that D in there, and once it did the up, it triggered my breakpoint because my events are already active. So let's walk through this code here. I'm going to step through it. We're going to create this variable first. And notice that it's got the u.dollar here, so it is doing a reference to the HTML element. When I hit step, ooh, it goes right into my utilities.js because it is executing the $ method, and it brings up that code. Very nice, and thank you. So I'm going to just click through that. It set my reference, and go on to the next statement. So now I am referencing that text. And now I can do my count work, which it did this, right? Text in work, value, length, right? And notice that it's got a 1 there. Just hovering over this stuff is one of the great features of Firebug, showing us those values. And let's keep on stepping, right? So now I'm doing the same thing with that count, right? So I just put this 1. I'm going to put it out there. Let me hit that one more time. So now that 1 is out here. You see that 1 got out here right at that statement. And let's step through again. Right? It's not greater than 100. And it's done. And now it's going to wait again. I can take that off of there. Click out here, and that's how that works. If I go ahead and turn on, let me go back to chapter 8 exercises here. Bring this guy up again for a second, and bring up Firebug again. And this time, I'm going to bring up the text counter here. And too late because the screen is already up there. I wanted to go through this add event, but let's just go ahead and take a look at it. Anyway, you see that it's got this text in ID, the key up, and the limit sum text, and it's already listening right now. But if we look at the utilities here on this add event, right here, you'll see that it does either the add event listener method or the attach event, right? So this is for everything but IE prior to 6 or prior to 8, I believe. And this is IE 8 and before. I believe IE 9 handles add event listener, maybe not. But this is how we write the code so it can handle either browser. So once again, it basically takes what type of event we're going to listen for, and it's key up or change, and what function we're going to execute once that happens. So I guess maybe it would be easier to see it from here. But once again, there's that utilities. There's these add and remove event. Here's our code there, text counter. I could turn off Firebug. And right, even if I copy and paste it in some text, right? I copied and pasted in some text there. It hasn't done anything, but once I remove that focus, ooh, look at that. It set that to 100. So what if I brought in a little bit less text? And I'm going to delete everything out of here, back to 0, right? And if I paste that text in there, lose focus, oh, now it's 14. So that's that change event, or my key up and key down. So there is our text counter using event listeners, event handling number 3. This is Dave, davecoast.com. If you want to go ahead and leave me a comment or a question, be glad to get back to you, or go ahead and contact me, Dave at davecoast.com, and you can come out here and get a hold of me also. But hopefully we both know a little bit more JavaScript now, and we are learning it together. Thank you very much for watching.